When Ethan dropped her home, the clock had already struck 12:30. Sicil had barely changed into her favorite worn-out pajamas when she heard the gentle tap on her window. It startled her at first, but when she pulled back the curtains, her surprise melted into a beaming smile. There stood Sebastian, grinning like a schoolboy, holding a small chocolate cake lit with a dozen tiny flickering candles. Her eyes sparkled with delight as she slid open the window. "Sebastian, what are you doing here?" He lifted the cake a little higher, the candles reflecting in his eyes like stars. "I couldn't let your birthday go by without making a fuss." "Happy birthday, Sicil," he said, his voice brimming with affection. Sicil giggled, reaching out to help him through the window. He clumsily clambered inside, still clutching the cake, and they both tumbled onto the bed laughing. The room filled with the sweet scent of chocolate as she blew out the candles, making a wish she wouldn't dare say out loud. They sat cross-legged on her bed, a little island of comfort amidst the chaos of clothes and books scattered around. Sicil broke off a piece of the cake, smearing some frosting on Sebastian's nose. He feigned annoyance but quickly retaliated, smudging a dollop onto her cheek. Their laughter was easy, genuine, the kind that made your stomach ache and left your face sore from smiling. After a few minutes of playful teasing, they settled down, sharing the cake in companionable silence. It was Sicil who broke it, reaching for her phone to play one of their old favorites, Witchcraft by Frank Sinatra. As the familiar tune filled the room, Sebastian extended his hand. "May I have this dance?" Sicil's heart fluttered, but she placed her hand in his. "Always," she whispered. They swayed together, the small space between them disappearing as the music wrapped around them like a comforting blanket. Sebastian's hand was warm against her waist, and Sicil felt the beat of his heart sinking with hers. The world outside, with all its worries and what-ifs, seemed a million miles away. It was just them, in this moment, dancing as if it was the only thing that mattered. The song ended, but they didn't pull away. Instead, they found themselves sitting on the floor, backs against the bed. Sebastian's gaze turned thoughtful, and he looked down at his hands as he spoke, almost as if he were nervous. "Do you remember prom night?" Sicil laughed, nodding. "How could I forget? You were the most handsome guy there," she teased, poking his arm. Sebastian chuckled, shaking his head. "You weren't supposed to be there. I was shocked when I saw you working as a server. I almost dropped my drink." Sicil rolled her eyes, her lips curling into a smirk. "Well, someone had to keep an eye on you. You were with Lily that night and she was practically swooning over you. You didn't even notice her heart eyes, did you?" Sebastian blinked, clearly taken aback. "What? No way! Lily was just a friend," he protested, defending his shy old prom date. Sicil arched a brow, giving him a look that said, "Seriously? You're that clueless?" Sebastian caught her expression, and they both burst into laughter. But then Sicil's smile faded. Her expression softened, the mischievous glint in her eyes replaced by something more vulnerable. "You know," she started, her voice quieter, "after you left school, things were really tough for me. Nobody talked to me. It felt like I had become invisible overnight." Sebastian's face fell, his own smile vanishing. The thought of Sicil feeling abandoned and alone because of him twisted his heart. He reached out, gently taking her hand in his. "Sicil, I had no idea. I'm so sorry. I never wanted you to feel like that. If I could go back and change it, I would." The sincerity in his eyes caught her off guard. It was as if the years of unspoken words and hidden feelings were finally surfacing between them. She squeezed his hand, offering a small smile. "It's okay, Seb. I missed you." The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was filled with the weight of shared history, a moment of raw honesty that had been a long time coming. As the night went on, their conversation flowed effortlessly, like a river that had been dammed for too long and was finally free to run its course. They spoke of their dreams, Sebastian's plans to see the world, Sicil's fantasies of opening a little bookshop by the sea. They debated whether there was life on other planets, and if stars could really whisper secrets to those who listened closely enough. Sebastian glanced up at the window, noticing how the first hints of dawn began to paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. He turned to look at Sicil, her face peaceful, her eyelids fluttering as she fought to stay awake. He pulled her close, and without a word, she rested her head on his chest. They lay there in silence, listening to the rhythm of each other's breathing. Before long, her eyelids grew heavy, and she drifted off to sleep in his arms again. He watched her for a moment, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face. She looked so serene, like she had not a care in the world. As the sun's rays crept into the room, Sebastian knew he had to go. He gently shifted her, careful not to wake her. With one last look, he pressed a soft kiss to her forehead. "Happy birthday, Sicil," he whispered before quietly slipping out the window, his heart full yet aching. But he wasn't done yet. He had planned the rest of her birthday to be as magical as this night had been. With one last glance at her sleeping form, he left, already anticipating the smile he would see on her face when she discovered his next surprise. Birthday girl. A sleek black limousine pulled up to Sicil's doorstep early in the morning. The driver stepped out, handing her a small, elegant envelope. Inside was a handwritten note. "Happy birthday. The entire day is yours. Relax, indulge, and enjoy. Love, Sebastian." With a smile tugging at her lips, Sicil slipped into the plush interior of the limo. It whisked her away through the city streets, heading towards a luxurious spa retreat. The morning was spent in blissful relaxation, massages, facials, and the soothing scent of lavender filling the air. By the time she emerged in the afternoon, she felt completely rejuvenated, like every worry had melted away. As she stepped out, she spotted Sebastian leaning casually against the limo, his warm smile spreading across his face as their eyes met. "Ready for the next adventure?" he asked, holding out his hand. Sicil's heart fluttered at the sight of him, excitement bubbling up. She placed her hand in his without a second thought, grinning. "Absolutely. Lead the way, birthday planner," she teased. Together, they got back into the limo, which drove them along winding country roads until they reached a clearing. There, towering against the sky, was a magnificent hot air balloon, its vibrant colors illuminated by the afternoon sun. Sicil's eyes widened in pure delight, her expression akin to a child seeing fireworks for the first time. "Are you serious? A hot air balloon ride?" she exclaimed, turning to Sebastian, her grin stretching ear to ear. "This is incredible." Sebastian chuckled, clearly pleased with her reaction. "I figured we could use a little change of perspective. How does a picnic at 3000 feet sound?" he asked, his eyes sparkling with the same thrill she felt. "Like the best birthday surprise ever." Sicil laughed, squeezing his hand as they made their way toward the waiting balloon. Climbing into the basket, they stood side by side, watching as the ground slowly drifted away. The balloon ascended higher, lifting them into a serene blue sky. Below them, the sprawling countryside unfolded. Patches of green fields, winding rivers, and tiny cottages that looked like toy houses from their lofty view. Sicil inhaled deeply, the cool breeze kissing her face. "This is breathtaking," she whispered, her voice filled with awe as she took in the panorama stretching endlessly before her. Sebastian wrapped an arm around her shoulders, pulling her close. "It's amazing, isn't it? I wanted to do something special, something you'd remember forever," he said softly, his gaze fixed on the horizon. Sicil leaned into him, her heart swelling with gratitude and affection. "It's absolutely magical, Seb. I've never felt so free," she murmured, her eyes shimmering as she looked up at him. They watched the landscape shift beneath them, basking in the golden glow of the late afternoon sun. It felt as if time had slowed down just for them, leaving them suspended in their own little bubble of joy, soaring above the world and the worries left far below. The world below them looked like a tiny painted scene, a patchwork of fields and little huts, dotted with grazing cows and winding rivers. Sicil leaned over the edge, pointing at a small cottage nestled among the trees. "Look at that tiny hut. It's so cute, like something out of a fairy tale," she exclaimed with a smile. Sebastian squinted in the direction she was pointing. "You think it's cute? I bet it's haunted," he teased, leaning closer to her, his arm casually draped around her shoulders. Sicil gasped dramatically, placing a hand over her heart. "How dare you ruin my fairy tale cottage, Seb? It's obviously a cozy little home where an old couple lives happily ever after baking pies and feeding birds." Sebastian chuckled. All right, I see it now. An old couple sitting on their porch, probably arguing about who forgot to close the barn door. Sicil grinned, playing along. And the husband definitely blames the wife, even though he's the one who always leaves it open. Sebastian laughed, his eyes crinkling at the corners. Exactly, and she just rolls her eyes and says, "Sebastian, you're hopeless." Sicil gave him a playful shove. "Hey, are you imagining us as that old couple?" Sebastian flashed her a cheeky grin. "Who else? I can already see you waving your cane at me, yelling about the barn door." Sicil burst out laughing, shaking her head. "Oh, please, as if you won't be the one yelling at kids to stay off your lawn." As their laughter faded, a flock of birds flew by, their wings catching the golden light of the setting sun. Sicil pointed excitedly. "Look, Seb, it's like they're racing us." Sebastian nodded, smiling as he watched the birds glide effortlessly through the sky. "Think they know they've got competition?" Sicil leaned back against him, nibbling on a piece of cheese from their picnic basket. "Well, we have the better view, so I'd say we're winning." He kissed the top of her head. "You always have to win, don't you?" "Of course," Sicil quipped. "What's the point of racing if you don't win?" Sebastian grinned, reaching for a strawberry and holding it up to her lips. "All right, champion. Here's your victory treat." She took a bite, her eyes fluttering closed as she savoured the sweetness. I could get used to this. Snacks, birds, and a beautiful sunset. Sebastian looked at her, his eyes softening. "Yeah, me too," he said quietly. The sky began to blush with hues of pink, orange, and gold as the sun dipped lower, casting a warm golden glow over the landscape. The view was breathtaking, but all Sicil could think about was the peaceful feeling washing over her, a feeling she hadn't had in a long time. She turned to Sebastian, a soft smile on her lips. "You know, I think this is the most perfect moment I've ever had." Sebastian's gaze met hers, his expression tender. "Me too, Sicil," he whispered. "I've missed this, missed us." Sicil's eyes sparkled as she gently squeezed his hand. "Well, we're here now, so let's make the most of it." Sebastian pulled her closer, wrapping his arm around her as they watched the sun slowly sink below the horizon. The world seemed to pause, leaving them in their own little bubble of happiness. Sicil rested her head against his chest, feeling his heartbeat steady and strong. "Seb," she murmured, her voice soft. "This feels like a new beginning." He kissed her forehead, his lips lingering there as if he could hold on to this moment forever. "It does," he agreed, his voice filled with quiet certainty. "And I promise this time I won't let go." For a while, they just sat there, wrapped up in each other as the sky darkened and the first stars began to twinkle above. It was as if the universe itself was celebrating their reunion, lighting up the night with 1,000 tiny sparks, guiding them towards whatever lay ahead. Under the deepening twilight, Sebastian and Sicil arrived at an elegant boutique, its grand windows softly illuminated by warm lights that cast a golden glow on the evening sidewalk. Sebastian gave her a playful smile as he opened the door, gesturing for her to step inside. "After you, birthday girl," he said with a wink. The boutique's interior was a haven of luxury, with rows of exquisite dresses displayed like pieces of art. The soft music playing in the background and the scent of fresh peonies created an atmosphere of refined sophistication. As they entered, a personal shopper approached them, her smile warm and welcoming. "Good evening, we've been expecting you," she said. "I've selected some beautiful options for tonight. Let's find something perfect, shall we?" Sebastian watched with an admiring gaze as Sicil was guided through the racks of dresses. She finally selected a stunning midnight blue gown. The moment she stepped out of the fitting room, Sebastian's breath caught, the gown draped flawlessly around her, hugging her figure in all the right places, the deep blue fabric shimmering like starlight with each movement she made. "You look absolutely breathtaking," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, his smile filled with genuine awe. Sicil did a playful twirl, the gown flowing gracefully around her. "Do you really think so?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with a mix of joy and anticipation. Sebastian took a step closer, his eyes locking with hers. "Without a doubt, you're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen," he said sincerely, his voice tinged with affection. Her cheeks flushed a light pink and she gave him a teasing smile. "Well, Mr. Charming, you sure know how to make a girl feel special." With the perfect ensemble chosen, the personal shopper discreetly left them alone, sensing they needed a private moment. Sebastian reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "I have one more thing for you," he said, his tone soft as he handed it to her. Curious, Sicil opened the box to reveal a delicate necklace, its pendant shaped like a tiny daisy, the petals encrusted with diamonds that caught the light and sparkled brilliantly. Her eyes widened in surprise, her fingers gently tracing the pendant. "Seb, this is stunning. You shouldn't have," she murmured, her voice filled with emotion as she looked up at him. He smiled warmly, his eyes never leaving hers. "You deserve every bit of beauty in the world, Sicil," he replied. "This daisy is our symbol, remember? A promise that no matter what, I'll always be there for you." Sicil's fingers traced the delicate petals of the pendant, her eyes shimmering with emotion. "Of course I remember," she whispered. "I still have the daisy pendant you gave me on prom night. I used to wear it whenever I missed you," she admitted, her voice barely above a murmur. Sebastian's heart clenched at her words, his smile faltering for a brief second, as he realized just how much his absence had affected her. Sicil clasped the new necklace around her neck, her hand lingering on the pendant as if it were a precious piece of their shared history. "Thank you, Seb," she said, her voice trembling. "This is perfect. I'll cherish it always." With Sicil now glowing in her stunning gown and the symbolic necklace, Sebastian took her hand, leading her out of the boutique. The limo awaited them once more, and together they made their way to the final surprise of the evening. The car pulled up to a charming venue strung with fairy lights, laughter and chatter spilling out into the night air. As Sicil stepped inside, she was met with a loud and joyous chorus of "Happy birthday!" Her eyes widened in surprise as she took in the sight. Friends, family, and even Ethan, standing among the guests with a big smile. She turned to Sebastian, her face lit up with delight. "You invited Ethan?" she asked, her voice brimming with disbelief and joy. Sebastian nodded, grinning. "Of course I invited Ethan. I wanted you to be surrounded by everyone who loves you. It wouldn't be a proper celebration otherwise." In that moment, surrounded by love and laughter, Sicil realized that Sebastian had given her not just a day to remember but a lifetime of cherished memories.